Hi everyone, I'm Eric with wifi-U and welcome back to Ask Wifi-U. In our last video, we talked about why Wi-Fi is often slower than Ethernet. One of the reasons we mentioned was retransmissions or retries. So today's question is, what causes Wi-Fi retries? Let's take a look. First, let's define what a retry really is. When a Wi-Fi device sends a unicast data frame, it normally expects an acknowledgement or an ACK from the receiving device. If the sender does not receive that ACK, it assumes that the frame did not arrive correctly. So it sends the frame again. This second transmission is considered to be a retry. One of the common causes is simply a weak signal. As the client moves farther away from the access point, or as the signal passes through walls or other obstacles, the signal weakens. If the receiver can't decode it correctly, it won't send the expected ACK. The sender then retransmits the frame. But weak RSSI isn't the only reason that causes retries. You can actually have a fairly strong signal and still have poor Wi-Fi performance. That's because signal strength and signal quality are not the same thing. Here we're looking at a spectrum analyzer view of 5 gigahertz, and you can see that our desired Wi-Fi signal, but you can see below it the RF energy that appears across the spectrum that isn't good for our signal. Some of the energy can come from other Wi-Fi transmitters, overlapping activity, or even other non-Wi-Fi devices. We can also see the noise floor, the background RF energy that the desired signal has to rise above. So you have to have signal above the noise. If interference or noise makes it difficult for the receiver to distinguish the desired signal, the frame may become corrupted, and once again, the frame, if it can't be decoded correctly, it's not going to send an ACK. This is why strong RSSI in and of itself does not mean you have a good, clean RF environment. Another reason is contention. So remember from our last video, Wi-Fi is a shared medium, and every device using the same channel has to compete for airtime. So as they're competing, they usually listen before they transmit, but they may not hear in a busy environment. They may not hear the other device, and they may override that signal, and that can cause interference, which could cause us not to receive an ACK again, which could cause us to have to resend or create a retransmission. So channel utilization and contention increases, or as they increase, the likelihood of retries increases as well. Another problem could be the MCS signal could be set too high. This isn't anything you would actually set, but it may just be too aggressive. And so the Wi-Fi is going to continually adjust its modulation and coding rates based on the quality of the connection. At higher MCS rates, we can send more bits with each symbol, but we risk having it not go through. So why do we care about retries? Because retries consume airtime. Imagine if I send just one frame and the client receives it correctly the first time. I use the airtime required for that transmission and the acknowledgement, and then I can move on to the next frame. But if that same frame has to be sent 2 or 3 times before it's successfully received, I'm using considerably more airtime to deliver exactly the same amount of useful data. And remember, while those retransmissions are occurring, other devices sharing that channel are also waiting for their airtime. So high retry rates don't just affect one client, they can reduce the overall throughput for the entire group of devices on that channel. So let's summarize. Wi-Fi retries occur when a sender does not receive the acknowledgement as expected from transmitting a frame. A weak signal can make that frame difficult to decode. Interference and noise can reduce signal quality, and high contention or competing transmissions can cause frames to be lost or corrupted. And also an MCS rate that is too aggressive for the current RF conditions can result in failed transmissions. When any of these things happen, the sender may have to retransmit the frame again. and every retry uses additional airtime. That's why retry rate is such a useful metric when we're trying to understand Wi-Fi performance. Thanks for watching Ask Wi-fi-U. In our Wireless Essentials course, we take a close look at retry rates in UniFi and use them together with RSSI, SNR, channel utilization, MCS rates, and RF analysis tools to understand what's really happening in the wireless environment. I'm Eric with Wi-fi-U, and I'll see you at the next Ask Wi-fi-U.